Will's taking his time.
There you go.
Let's wait a little bit. Okay. All right. Now we're recording, so I'll jump into it, and if anyone else joins, we'll just we'll have them kind of join in. So welcome. These are our Ollo Metrics workshops. We do these. We're going to be doing these once a month all throughout 2023 and going forward. And so we tackle a lot of different topics related to digital marketing. Today, it's a big one on many people's minds, which is how to set up and migrate to Google Analytics 4. We're going to be digging into a lot of basically a setup plan for how you can coordinate this in your company, and also digging into the reporting section and the platform itself to get a better understanding, because it looks a little different than the old analytics. So it is fairly uncomfortable for a lot of people to get used to the new way of doing things. So I'm Warren. I'm one of the co-founders of Ollo Metrics, and it's a real pleasure to have you all here. For those who don't know us very well, Ollo Metrics is a digital marketing agency. We do Google ads, Meta ads. Now we got to say Meta instead of Facebook ads, SEO, but what really makes us different is we put a lot of emphasis on analytics. So that's why we're talking about this today. That's why with our clients, we make sure that things are set up properly right from the get-go, because then you can really trust your data, you can make smarter business decisions, you get to understand your audience better. And so it's this trickle-down effect once you have your analytics set up properly. So I'm also a lead instructor at BrainStation and Jelly Academy, which are two digital marketing kind of boot camps / schools. And so we do a lot of the stuff in this kind of setting with classes, and so that's where this whole workshop thing kind of came from. And so joining me is Pronab, and I'll let him introduce himself.
Hi everyone, I'm Pronab, and I'm working as a senior paid ads and measurement specialist at Ollo Metrics. So yeah, I'm mainly in charge of our paid advertisements and making sure all the conversion tracking and setups are done correctly. So yeah, I'm looking forward for talking with you about GA4 and stuffs.
Awesome. So Pronab is our senior, as you mentioned, senior paid ads and measurement specialist. A lot of things that we're sharing today are different frameworks and stuff that he's been really staying up on the just on the edge of the best practices in the industry. And we try to take a lot of, because it's changing so fast, Google is making all of these updates on a regular basis. We're trying to make them simple and understandable, and then also give you guys some tools to help with the implementation on your end. Even if you don't do it yourself, so that you would know how to instruct someone else to do this. So Ollo workshops, as I mentioned, it's this crazy idea that we got last year of just having a place to invite some of our clients and a lot of digital marketers and marketers to really talk about what's working, tools, strategies, techniques, how to be successful. There's so many changes that happened last year, and this year there is going to be so many more with AI and GA4 coming into the forefront. So how can we stay up to date? Doing these kind of workshops is our answer to that. So we also will have a breakout session where we can get some hands-on training. Whenever we do a little bit of a form response at the end, a workshop feedback form. It's everyone's favorite part, where they say they actually got the most value out of it. So we'll be doing that later on. And then you can kind of, you'll stumble through maybe some of the reports, but you get to ask those questions, get live feedback with Pronab and myself. So the agenda, first we're going to do a little background on Google Analytics, like why is Google Analytics 4 coming into play, and talk about the importance of it, some major issues that a lot of people have been running into. We'll talk about the GA4 migration plan, how you can do that for your business. We'll do a little analytics exercise called Find That Metric, and then some QA and free resources at the end. So we're going to share the slides, the video, the free resource, and everything with you guys. So if there's anything you miss, you can catch up with it after. So I will say, I was just curious about this, is to go in the chat at the bottom right corner and just let us know your first name, where you're from, what you do, maybe the company or organization you work with. That will help us when we get into some of these examples. We'll try to make them specific to your industry. So if there's a chance for us to pull up a report and say, hey, for Molly, if you're based in e-commerce, this is a report that could work for you. that industry. So throw it in there. It's always great to see the types of companies and industries that people are from as well. So I'll leave the chat open for now and continue on. And so, by the way, there is no test, but we're going to do that find the metric exercise. So if you are multitasking, that might be a bigger struggle for you. So if you can, I would say focus on the next couple of sections, because it's going to help you when you have to go take care of this yourself. So let's get started. Pronab is going to give us a quick history lesson on Google Analytics. Who knew we'd be talking about Google Analytics history? But yeah, go ahead, Pronab, take it away.
Thank you, Orion. Hello, everyone. So Google Analytics 4, big topic right now in our industry. We are looking at like different perspective on these, especially when people are coming up and asking why GA4, why it's here, why they are changing it so many stuffs. But as Google has like quite emphasized, it is the platform which is designed for the future of measurement. We are preparing for some changes, which is currently we are looking at like in the industry. So this is not the first time when Google has decided to upgrade the analytics. So to start with, like how it all started, like you might be familiar with the term called UTM, which is we often use to use like in our UTM tags, which is this was actually founded by Urchin tracking company, which was the Google mainly in the traffic analytics for the website. So these like the company was acquired by the Google in the early 2005, and later it was branded as the Urchin for Google. Later, after a couple of years, they decided to upgrade it further, and they launched their very first version, which is the Classic Analytics. So the Classic Analytics had some quite new features compared to their Urchin for Google. It had embedded like with the e-com feature, which we often see in our regular Universal Analytics. Again, after a few years in 2012, they decided to launch, make some big changes on the platform and launch some quite cool features, which are we quite used to right now, like looking at different types of behavior analytics and demographics. So that was in the 2012, they decided to bring it up. So besides this Universal Analytics, they also have another branch, which is about like more onto the app developments for mobile platforms. So that is the Firebase, which again, like the company which is actively involved providing the web development platform. So that was acquired in the early 2007, but later in 2014, it was rebranded as Google Analytics for Firebase. So besides just like web app developments, it is also gives the developers kind of like analytics about your apps. So these two platforms were quite separate till to 2020. But in 2020, they decided, like as the most of the interactions which we see in our users, they are often integrated between cross channels. You might see the user coming from the web app, using the mobile app, and also they are going on the websites. So it was hard to track on the different platforms. So, and with the new feature of the GA4, which is also the branding as Web Plus app. So that is, you could see the metrics for your website as well as for your app at the same platform. That is the GA4. And also it has like some very cool features that we will be discussing in coming slides. So what does that mean for us, like as in marketers? Why? What are the top features that we are looking at? Like what's the things that have been changed significantly? So there are quite few tools that they have recently launched. Just to name a couple of few of them. The first would be, I would emphasize on the smart AI and machine learning, which they are trying to implement in this new platform. So how that works? So basically, it is based on the simplified data model. So when I say the simplified data model, what's that? So let's say, like when we were in the universal analytics, we used to see the events, action, category, label, kind of like those sections. But right now, you don't see them in the Google Analytics 4. It is quite different than compared to the before. There is now event, and you could send some more parameters into it. And while you're doing so, you need to make sure that like you are following the correct naming conventions, you are providing the right information to the platform so that it can understand which event is which. So that is their basically the simplified data model, making it very simple rather than like just restricting yourself on the event categories, actions, and labels. When you provide your data the way GA4 wants it, then the machine learning comes into the part. That is the best part. So when your simplified data provided to the GA4 is combined with the machine learning part, it gives you some output in terms of predictive insights. So that means like it will tell you some like what are the potential lookalike audiences that you could target on, or some of the cool insights about that we would be discussing in details. But yeah, that's like the part which is about the smart AI. Next, I would say like overcoming the privacy controls. So as you might be aware of, like right now, like most of these like Google, iPhone, Facebook, Meta, and they are all coming up like going towards like cookie-less measurement, which is like making sure like there are not third-party cookies are involved when you are tracking the users. So how you this is quite helpful for the users to protect their privacy. But as a marketers, it is becoming very difficult to track the users or like to identify where you are, how your overall campaigns are performing. So that's where the GA4 is trying to fill out that gap using the different features such as observed versus model data, which includes cookie-less measurement. Like it will tell you like some based on your given data, they would try to model the lookalike audiences and blend it together to give you the more insights on it. Same way, there is a predictive audiences, which is kind of like the based on, again, on the AI, giving you the more information on what are the lookalike audiences that potentially could be getting converted in the nearest future. And then another best part about the GA4 is their flexibility. It gives you the whole customization so that like it's not only you would be like in the universal analytics, you could create like the custom reports, but it is not limited now only on the custom reports part, but you could basically customize the whole platform based on your needs. Like you could customize the different exploration, collections, or summary cards, which are currently available in the GA4. And the last, which is the BigQuery integration. So BigQuery, basically, it is the platform. It allows you to, if you are working with like a very big data, then you could just like extract it into the platform, and you can analyze that data in more detail. So BigQuery integration before was only available for the Premier users, but now it is available for all users, as well as like you could integrate your GA4 with the Data Studio, and you could try to deep dive into your analytics. So yeah, those are the quite some cool features which they have added recently.
Awesome. And I think a lot of this also will be a little bit more tangible as soon as we get into the platform. But like to Pranab's point, the simplified data model is really coming up with consistent naming conventions for all of your events so that Google can see that data across all of its different users and then start to let its machine learning create insights for you. So previously, you'd have to look through reports and you'd have to be like, where's the insight here that I can share with my team? And now Google's going to give you those insights, and probably a lot that you've never seen, you never would have picked up on your own. So, it's pretty cool. But what that means is that Pronab, as mentioned, lots of more customization in your reporting. It's like some people might have a harder time in that initial phase when they're getting used to using the reports, because it's going to feel unfamiliar, and because you can customize it so much, it's hard to know, like, where do I start? So it's part of our process, and I think I'll explain a little bit more later on how to keep things simple for you. So some of the important things that we wanted to highlight with GA4, and the reason why we're even doing this session today, is that universal analytics, so the Google Analytics that everyone here would be using and has used in the past, will stop processing hits after July 1st, 2023. So it's just under 6 months. That means that beyond that date, you're not going to see any data going forward. So you'll have the retroactive data, but nothing going forward. So you need to make the switch before that date. So GA4 data will not be retroactive. If you install GA4, then you won't be able to see what happened 2 years ago. You're just going to be able to see what happened from that day forward. And so switching sooner will help you get more historical data for when you need to make that switch. You can always reference the old Universal Analytics reports if you're like, okay, I want to know what happened last year. So you can reference your old Universal Analytics account and then compare it to the GA4 account. But it might be just a little uncomfortable to do that, and maybe you have to switch back and forth a lot. So that's why we're recommending that people do this sooner than later. A lot of our clients have already moved over, and we have plans to move over a lot more now. So that's July 1st. If you are a Universal Analytics 360 user, which probably is no one here, but for a really big site, kind of enterprise level, then you do have 1 extra year before making the switch. So migration appears easy. You might even notice this when you're going to migrate to GA4. GA4 has this OneClick migration tool for importing goals and conversions from Universal Analytics. So a goal and a conversion or event is basically something like an action that someone takes on your site. So if someone makes a purchase, or if they add something to their cart, these are events that you would have had to set up as custom actions on your site and on your current Google Analytics. So maybe it was your marketing agency or your web developer that kind of set these things up for you. And so in theory, Google is saying that, oh, you can just use one-click migration. Everything is going to port over to the new platform, and it's all going to work just like moving over from like a new Apple phone to the new one. So it seems like an easy solution, right? But what we've seen and from our clients, and also a lot of the forums for analytics specialists, is that the reality is not such a pretty picture. So there are endless, I'll say, Reddit boards and other kind of analytics boards online of people complaining about this one-click migration not working. So there's been quite a few hiccups with Google. That's part of the reason why we have this migration checklist, because we actually don't recommend doing that one-click migration. You might be fortunate to have a site that has maybe a very simple goal conversion structure. It's just like maybe one form completion on the site, and that's all you're paying attention to. But for most of our the clients and websites that we work on, there's other things that you want to track. You want to track phone calls, you want to track email clicks, you want to track purchases, certain actions, and a lot of those are either showing up as missed data or duplicates. And so it really it's kind of this thing, like, if you don't trust your reporting, then you can't make decisions based on it. So the key is that it gets set up properly from day one, and then you can actually make better business decisions based on that data, and not just on a hunch because you don't really trust what's going on. So here's what we're talking about today: the 4 steps for migration. And so we've kind of broken it into these 2 categories. One is pre-work, the stuff that you would do in advance, and then implementation would be in platform. So most people, they would just get right into in the platform and start fiddling around with things, and probably get frustrated because they don't know what they're trying to achieve. So that's why we started with this first stage. So pre-work you want to do an audit of your current situation. So what are we currently, what kind of reports do we need? What's going on? How many properties do we have? And then what structure do we need or do we have currently, and how is that going to translate? So I'm going to go into each one of these in detail. So on the implementation side, finally, you'll need to do the setup. So once you know your current situation and the structure that you need, when I say structure, I'm talking about the events and goals that you'd want to track on your website. So like, if you're an e-com site, add to carts, page views, for product page views, initiate checkout, purchase. If you're a lead generation site, maybe it's thank you form completions or a quote request or a free consultation. And then the setup is actually putting those into practice. So out of the box, GA4 doesn't necessarily have all of this tracking in place. You need to manually go in and make that, tell it, when this action happens, that means it's a conversion. So the setup and finally the reporting. So yes, and you guys will receive the slideshow and the video recording and the template, which we'll share after as well. So the pre-work, what does that look like? I'm going to dive a little deeper here. So the first stage was the audit. So before you begin, and by the way, we're going to have this reflected in the free resource that we're handing out. So all of these questions will be there and you can follow along this for your own site. But before you begin the switch, you just want to ask these questions. So what is your business structure? How many websites do you have? Most businesses, believe it or not, have more than one website these days. And even if it feels like it's one website experience, oftentimes it's two different platforms. So it might come from a WordPress and they click to go shop online, feels like the same website, but they've gone to Shopify. So it's very common. The same thing could apply for maybe a landing page software that they have, or a certain type of app for doing appointment bookings, etc. So how many websites do you actually have? Which platform are your websites running on, like Shopify, WordPress, etc.? So you just audit that current situation. And then the other one to ask, and I'm not sure if everyone here is familiar with, there's another tool that Google has called Google Tag Manager. So when we talk about implementing these event and conversion tracking, you actually need to use another tool called Google Tag Manager, or at least that's the recommended way to do it, and then install all of those events and triggers so that it communicates that information over to Google Analytics. So they kind of work hand in hand. The way I like to describe it is Google Analytics is kind of like a hub, and they have so many different platforms that connect to it, like Google Ads and Google Optimize and Google Search Console and Google Tag Manager, and they all kind of work together in a system. So you want to know, do these websites, how many websites do we have? How many Google Analytics platforms do we have? And also, are we using Google Tag Manager to track those events on those sites? So that was the next point there. I'm talking ahead. And then this is going to apply for everyone just a little differently. Who's going to do that setup and migration for you? Is it your web developer, your marketing team, etc.? So there is a little bit of expertise needed for doing that tag manager setup. And so whatever that is for your site. By the way, if you do have any questions about anything that we talked about today, I'm going to share my email at the end, and you can always reach out. But the next stage is, what reports do I need? So if you're currently using Google Analytics, ask yourself, what reports do I look at on a weekly, monthly, maybe quarterly basis? And it's going to be different for a lot of different companies, but that's a great thing to do, is just take inventory. Is it the source medium report that you look at on a regular basis to find out which websites and mediums your users are coming from? Is it maybe it's a cities report? So you're looking at geolocation of where your purchases are coming from by city. So whatever that is, like, that's important for your business, make a list of those reports before you even get into GA4, because then you can start to customize and set those up. So I do have an example just to kind of illustrate this. So let's say you had a company, XYZ. So example company here, and this is an extremely common scenario. So they have maybe two websites. Oftentimes, you'll have a WordPress website for maybe a more information-based experience, maybe that's where your blog is housed and maybe service pages. And if you have a shopping experience, then that would be Shopify or BigCommerce or one of those e-commerce platforms. So one company, 2 websites. So that means 2 analytics properties. And then in this case, for example, one website doesn't have Google Tag Manager installed, one does. So it's good to know that, right? This actual situation has happened for a client of ours that we took over, and we were auditing their account. And we said, oh, okay, this one's got Google Tag Manager, this one doesn't. And then, so what kind of reports are they looking at for those different sites? Example, from the e-commerce side of things, they might be looking at their e-commerce reports, want to know what their sales funnel is, the product performance, what are the top products, and top sales by city, etc. And then on the WordPress site, they might be looking at their goals reports. So the different actions that people have taken when they're trying to ask for a quote or contact people. They're also maybe looking at their SEO reports and maybe behavior, page views. What blogs are people reading, right? So these are very common ones. And then also what audiences are important to us on each of those sites. So these are called retargeting audiences a lot of the time. They're also referred to as segments if you were looking at them and trying to look at them through a specific time period. But e-commerce, it's very common to want to keep a retargeting audience of people who've added to their cart in 30 days and maybe didn't purchase, or they initiated checkout and they didn't purchase. Those would be great audiences that you could retarget and send some ads to. Same thing on the other side, contact form page. Maybe they came to a contact form, but they didn't complete it. And maybe the people that completed, you can use as an exclusion audience, right? You can say, hey, they actually reached out for a free consultation. We're not going to advertise them to them anymore. So whatever those audiences are for you, it's good to just get an inventory of them. And you can do that with a free resource that we share. So the next stage is structure. So events and conversions. What events and goals are we currently tracking in Universal Analytics? And so the difference between an event and a goal, an event is some sort of action that happens within a page. So you go to a page, maybe you're scrolling, you're clicking on a video, you're clicking a certain button. Those are all, Google categorizes those as events. And some of those events might have a high business value for your company. So, if someone makes a purchase, that would be a really important event for us. So usually then you can categorize those ones as conversions. To say, okay, events are all of these things we want to track that might be important to understand user behavior, and then goals or conversions, as it's going to become, are the ones that it's like those have business value for us. So you put into a spreadsheet and of all of the events and goals that you're tracking right now. So you can actually find this in Google Analytics, your Universal Analytics, and then you have to think about what that's going to look like in GA4. So they are going to be different. There's multiple categories of events in GA4. And so I'm going to go through those in the example right after this, and then I think that'll help to explain it. So because there are some naming conventions to follow, and the whole reason for this is what Pronab talked about earlier, was the standardized reporting or the simplified data input. So Google wants standardization on how you name your events and conversions, so that they can make smarter insights with machine learning. So if everyone had add to cart and it was different on every single website, the machine learning wouldn't work as well as if everyone had the same add to cart event on every website. So then Google can make smarter recommendations and insights for you. So and then finally, audiences is the other part of this. So which retargeting audiences are you currently using? Again, you can find that in Universal Analytics. It's all in the admin section, but you can always, by the way, everything that I talked about today, you can YouTube. So you can Google it, you can YouTube it, and try to find a tutorial. And so I think the key is that you just know what to look for. So if you're like, hey, how to find retargeting audiences in Google Analytics, you could go to YouTube and look that up, and then you could get a little tutorial on. So you want to know where those audiences are, what you're currently tracking, and then make a list of those, and then set them up in Google Analytics 4 as well. So here's the example for that. This is for events, and then the other one's going to be for audiences. So events, right now you might be tracking these events in Google or Universal Analytics. So product page views, this happens a lot. Add to cart, initiate checkout. Depending on the type of website, you might be looking like a PDF download. Okay, like how many people download a PDF on our site? So those can all be important. That can all be important information for you, depending on your website and your business. So in Google Analytics 4, there's going to be 4 categories. There's automatically collected events, enhanced measurement events. I'll explain this in a bit. Recommended events and custom events. So it's a little confusing because before there was just events, and now there's 4 categories of them. The good news is the automatically collected ones, they're automatic. So you don't actually need to do anything. Google will automatically collect those. Enhanced measurement events, they're also automatic. You just need to turn on a specific button that says enhanced measurement. And once you turn that on, it will start to download or give you that information. So additional information like page views or file downloads, like I talked about earlier with those PDF downloads. So if you want that information, it could be in that enhanced measurement events. So anything, the bottom 2 are the custom ones. So these ones are the recommended events. And so as Pronab mentioned earlier, the simplified data model is all about this recommended events part, right? So Google now has naming conventions that they strongly encourage you to follow. So you'll need to, when you're creating these recommended events, so that you will get those extra insights in your reporting. So yeah, add to cart, begin checkout, purchase. These aren't things that Google will automatically track. So if you're an e-commerce site, you do need to manually add these actions, and that's done with the help of Google Tag Manager. And then custom events. So there's certain ones that aren't part of Google's big long list. And by the way, we're going to in that resource we're sharing later, it's going to have all of the big list, but Google also keeps this updated online. So custom events, things like a product review, product click, things that are happening on certain pages that aren't part of, Google hasn't kind of made them part of their recommended event set, because you might still need some extra customization on your site. Then you would set those up as custom events, and which is a little extra work, and then you can view that data specific to you, but it's not going to be like this generalized insights. Okay, so the second half of that was audiences. We have events. That's all the actions that are happening on our site. And audiences is our different user behavior groups. So these were all very common audiences to use in the past. With Google, so product page views. This is basically if like you're clicking on a specific product to look at that product and select the different sizes and whatnot. Then that would be, you would set up all these audiences. And it would just be really, it's whatever audience you need, you just set it up. There's no categorization of audiences. So just like events, audiences are going to have different categories. So in Google Analytics 4, there's 4 different kind of categories when you're setting up your audiences. So general ones, Google, like in a way, it's easier. Google gives you a lot more help with setting up these audiences. But instead of just every audience kind of just being its own thing, we have these different groupings. So recently active users, so someone that came to your website, maybe if you have a subscription website and they came and started watching some videos recently, that would be an example of a general audience person. And then in templates, these are pre-built templates that Google helps you with. So different demographic reports, like if you wanted audiences like within a certain age range or something along those lines, or certain technology, maybe it's iPhone users, Google has a bunch of templates for you. And then custom is if there's anything that isn't in the templates section that you want to create as an audience, then you can also set that up custom for yourself. The new one that wasn't in the old Google Analytics is this predictive section. So people that likely 7-day purchasers or predicted 28-day top spenders. So because of that machine learning and the standardization of all of the events and actions, now Google is able to create these smart audiences. And out of the box, like right when you install Google Analytics 4, you won't have access to this. Google needs to kind of get some data over time. But then you can imagine how useful some of these would be. Predicted 28-day top spenders. So you could use that as a retargeting audience for your Google display ads. And so you can say, okay, if anyone has, is in this audience, we're gonna put a lot more money there and try to get in front of them with more frequency. So pretty cool stuff. But like, I think the thing to wrap that's a bit of a mindset shift is these different categories of events and different categories of audiences, which I think will trip some people up. I know I was tripped up by it at first. So awesome. So, and then the next phase is the implementation in platform. So I'm going to have Pronab walk us through this.
Thanks, Warren. So yeah, like as Warren has explained, this is like the first part where you had to decide what you want. Like you did your already like off-platform all the audits, and now the second part, which is implementing what you have already on your paper. So the first part of that, your implementation strategy would be the actual setup. So under the setup, we would be doing first installations and settings, which is you would create like a GA4 property and set up the data stream. So data stream identify, you could try to relate it as same as when you are creating the universal properties and like you were adding like a multiple views or creating, adding the settings here. So that view part is no more available in the GA4. Rather, you would be having like just one property for that particular account, and like you would be adding the data stream based on which platform you are integrating. Whether if it's a website, then the data stream for the website. If it's the app, then another data stream for the app, and so on. So that is the first part. You would be setting up those like a pretty straightforward. You can just like simply create them. And then the second part would be adding those actual snippets into your website, which is your GA4 configuration tag. And as Warren has mentioned earlier, we highly recommend to use the Google Tag Manager. It gives you way more customization, and like it's easy to use. So you can always implement it using the G tag. Then the third and important part would be making sure all the settings are correct in your GA4 property. So the first part would be the data collection. So in the data collection part, make sure you toggle on certain things, which is like you make sure you enable the remarketing audiences. If you don't do that, like you might not see any your audiences getting populated. Same way, you might want to toggle on the Google signals, which is one of the very important metrics for the Google to identify the users when there is a user ID or there is like a specific metric is not available to distinguish your unique user. So Google Signal, make sure you are toggling it on. On the property settings, you would be also adding you would be toggling in certain settings there. And in the product linking, you would be linking your different channels, such as like if you are using the Google Search Console or you are using the Google Ads, make sure you link those products there. Then the second part would be about like the events and conversions. So as you have like in the audit part, you have already now categorized your events in 4 main categories, which is automated, enhanced, recommended, and custom events. Now, like when you have like on this on paper, it's quite easier for you now to implement it quite quickly. So you know some of the events which you see them as an enhanced conversion, you don't need to go and like try to replicate them. However, if you want some certain kind of like a customization in your existing enhanced conversions, then you can always toggle off them and then do them as in custom events. To give you one example, let's say file download is the currently the conversion available in your enhanced conversion. But let's say you, when you see that custom event that on your reports, you want to find out what type of file download people have done. Is it like a PDF, or if you are having them certain doc files as well on the website. So if you want to distinguish them, then you want to send some extra information along with that event, which would be file type, and that would be your extra parameter. In those cases, I would suggest you can just toggle off that particular event from the enhanced conversion and set it up as your custom event and send that extra information inside the parameter. So we will discuss that like as an example in the coming slides. So yeah, so in these steps, you would be deciding how you want to set up your events. Another important part is about the custom definitions. So what is the custom definitions? It is basically your all the dimensions and metrics which you are passing along with the events that need to be defined in the GA4. It means that like whenever you are like in the universal analytics, let's say like you were looking at like event category, action, and label. So you didn't have to basically tell the universal analytics like, hey, I want to see what is the click for this particular. It was already coming up in the action if you are already doing it. But now, let's say if you want to, if you have a conversion called a click, and you want to see what type of clicks are there. Like, so you would be having like multiple parameters such as click URL, click text, and more about like where that click happened. So you need to define them in your as in custom dimensions and custom metrics. So that is very important part, which sometimes people forget to do it. And then like you might end up like not seeing them in your reports.
And Pronab, I think we got an example of that on the next slide as well, right?
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
And the next part would be about like audience segments. So which is like, you need to make sure that like you set up your retargeting audiences and dimensions. And again, like the same way like you set up your audiences, make sure you set up your segments as well. So yeah, we will see some examples for that. Let's say taking our XYZ company's example, they have like a, this is one example of their event, which is initial checkout. And like, this is how it could be looking in their universal analytics. You could see category, action, label, and then like certain event value, which you have already passing with. But now when you are looking in the GA4, you would see that like, you don't need to pass it as category, action, label. Rather, you would be adding it just as an one event name, which is begin checkout, which is in the recommended event section. If you have noticed the naming part, like we haven't used any gaps or we haven't used any space between the names, which is also the part of the naming conventions. You need to make sure you are following all the small caps, it is underscore, and like there is like a certain word limit as well. So yeah, so besides the event name, you would see there are like another parameters which are called as items, coupons, page locations. So all those are called as parameters, and you need you can send like multiple parameters along with one custom event. So you are not restricted to see only limited information, but now you could see multiple information just for that your begin checkout in your reports. So that is one of the cool part of this GA4's new conversion setups.
Awesome. Yeah, and like just to kind of emphasize that, I know that Pronab, you did a setup for a certain client of ours, and they had multiple different search actions that were happening on the website. It was kind of a directory website, and they were really limited by the fact that in Universal Analytics, you could only really give 3 pieces of information to accompany that search. So what was in the actual search bar, what page did it happen from, and so on the new Google Analytics 4. You can get way more detail about the actions that are happening on the website. And so you're not limited to just 3 different kind of variables. You've got, it could be 10 plus.
Yeah, that's correct.
Awesome.
Yeah, so coming up to our next part, which is about reporting. So in the reporting, this is just like a quick overview, but like when we would be going and looking in actual platform, we would be looking in how actually this looks like. So there is like four main sections. One is like home, where you would be like see like an overview, and just like a real-time snapshot. And there are like some few more summary cards have been added, which are more about like recently accessed and so some insights and recommendations. So we will go in details there later on. Then the second part is about the reports, where you just like see like a reportings for like a different life cycles, like acquisition reports, engagement reports, and your e-com reports, and so on. Another, yeah, like as well as like your demographic and tech reports. And then another part would be the Explore. So this is like, you can identify it as your, the custom reports, which we are often creating in the Universal Analytics. So here you could create like your own custom reports, but there is like more flexibility and like you could do way more than Universal Analytics. So yeah, so that is just like a general overview of like a reporting section.
So we'll go through this in more detail, but the Explore section is probably maybe the most intimidating, I think, at first, but allows you to customize things to your needs. And oftentimes, if you create one custom report, you just use that report over and over again. So that's pretty common.
So yeah, coming up to the next part, which would be important, and I think like somewhere we might need to pay attention to, which is like as in like a new platform, there are certain changes happening. Even though we can see some metrics, we can see most of the metrics as in UA, but there are some new metrics, or like the existing metrics definition is changed. So to give you some, we have like added here some few important examples. The first is user acquisition versus traffic acquisition. So in your reporting part, in the acquisition section, you will see now like these two reports. One is user acquisition and another is traffic acquisition. So what is exactly the difference between these two? So the first one is about how you first acquired your user on the website, or how they come, which channel basically they use to come on your website for the very first time. That is your user acquisition. And the traffic acquisition basically is your like all the sessions, all the traffics which lead to your website. Like it's based on your last session. So to give you the like a proper example, if I come to some website from the Google search, and then like I went there, I see multiple pages, I hop off, and then next day I came there through the Google ads, and then I got converted like for their email subscription. In that cases, in my user acquisition report, you would see that like my email subscription conversion is attributed to the Google organic channel. And whereas in the traffic acquisition report, you would see that like it is attributed to the Google ads, because that was the last channel where I got converted. So that is the main difference there. So whenever you are looking at these reports, like the big mistake many people do is that they look at the wrong metrics while pulling out these reports. So if you are looking at like a user acquisition reports, you will always want to use the metrics and dimensions which starts with the first. So for example, like when you are looking at the channels, you want to see the first source and medium, first user campaign, and so on. In the GA4, all the metrics which are associated with the user acquisition, you will see then they are beginning with the first. Similarly, for the traffic acquisition, all those metrics start with the session in the beginning. So that is the main kind of like a very big important detail we need to know. Yeah. And for the there are like few like another metrics that have changed, which is source medium, like which we often got used to it, like when we are in our universal analytics. But now, like when you want to see that in the same way in the GA4 reports, you will see that there is like now session source and medium, and also there is a first source and medium. So as I explained earlier, that is like depends on like which reports you want to see. So if you want to replicate this quite closer to the what we had before, then I would recommend using the session source and medium, which is almost similar to the earlier version of source and medium. Then another is like a page path, page titles, which were often used to see in our UA. But now you would see that like there is another parts like which is page. If you want to see the page URLs like a complete, then instead of like simply page, you would see the page location. If you don't see it in your reports, then you might want to define them as your custom dimension. Same way, there is a pre-default one, which is page path and screen class, or page title and screen class or name. So what is that? Like, so it is, as we discussed earlier, GA4 is not only now about the website, but it is about web plus app. So the screen class is basically for the mobile applications. So if your business is not using them, you feel free to ignore that part, and you can use just like page path and screen class as your page path. Next part would be next important metric they change is the bounce rate. So in our earlier UA, we used to see the bounce rate, which was quite similar, like when the user come to your site and like they hop off without like doing any integration, any interaction, then it was considered as a bounce rate. But now the bounce rate is inverse of your engagement rate. So in order to know that, like, let's say first, what is the engagement rate? So now in the GA4, we are looking at these engagement of the users. So when someone comes on the website and they don't do any interaction with the page for 10 seconds, or if they don't do some event or like any conversion, then it is considered as non-interaction. So that is your bounce rate. So why they are making those changes? So basically, it is because now all these websites, we can see like the interaction technology is changing. Before it used to be like multiple pages, but now there are like single page applications as well, where people might not be like interacting quite often. So that is the reason there is a bounce rate change in there. Another metric is the goals. We used to see the goals in Universal Analytics, but you might not find them in here. There is now all the events, and like how any of those events you could toggle on as the conversions. So these are some important metrics that have been changed, but there is a whole documentation provided by the Google, like how which metrics they have changed, and like we have linked it in our this slide, which you can always refer back and like look at there and like identify which one used to use.
Awesome. Yeah, it's these two links right here. So when we send this out after, and you guys come to the slide, you'll be able to click on those, and Google keeps those updated all the time.
Yeah. So yeah, going back to our like next part, which is like a reporting demo. So yeah, like we would be going to the GA4's demo account. If you are already using the Google Analytics, please click on open this link, which we are just like shared right now. You can click on it and like it will open this. You would able to integrate it in your analytics.
Yeah, and so you have to, once you click on the link, you'll have to come down, scroll down a little bit, and then click on Google Analytics for property, Google Merchandise Store. So this is basically the store where Google sells all of their like branded T-shirts and everything else, and they just make this open to the public, so so that we can use and learn how to use Google Analytics using their data. So that being said, I'll pass it over the screen over to Pronab. Pronab, just to let you know, we've got about 10 minutes, so we might have to go through fairly quickly.
Sure.
But then after this, guys, we'll go through the free resources, and we'll do some breakout rooms and kind of help you with the hands-on part. So I'll let you share your screen for now.
Thank you, Oren. So yeah, are you able to? You might be able to see my screen now. So we are right now like on the GA4 demo account, which has like a read-only access. So we might not able to see some edit options here, which you will in your property. So when you come on the first, you would see like this, like the main four menus over here, which is like home, reports, explore, and advertising. So the configure part, they just recently got rid of. Like, so if you even click on it, like it will ask you to go to the admin sections to work on that. So you might not see that like in future. So that all comes in your admin section, those settings. So it will be mainly home, reports, explore, advertise. So coming back to the home section, we can see like a quick overview of like some like very like what are your top users and like your real-time data over here. And then here you could see like your history, recently accessed, like if you are, whatever changes you are doing on the platform, they will be recorded here. Then there is this new summary card, which is your suggested for you. So cross industry if you are in the e-com industry, which are the top popular reports that people are using that Google Analytics will recommend you over here. And you can always check back if you like something. The best part, like I would say about these reports is like this new feature, which is insights and recommendations. So as we discussed earlier, based on their AI model, they will identify what are the top trends happening on your website. Like if you see some dramatic hike in some specific conversion, or if they see that there is some opportunity for particular audiences that you could use to optimize, they will always show those insights and recommendations here. And you can always share those insights with your client or with your internal team. And if you find them useful, you can always give them like a feedback, and based on that, like it will try to improve. So yeah, that is your home section. Then the most important section is your reporting part, where you will be spending your most of the time. So in the reporting snapshot, it is like, again, same kind of like an overview of like all the reports. Then now they have like segmentized like all these reports into these different collections, which is like a life cycle collection and the user collection. You could add multiple collection as you want. Inside the lifecycle collection, you could see there are like subcategories like acquisition, engagement, monetization. Acquisition is basically how users came to your website. So as we discussed earlier, you could see these like a first user acquisition and then like a traffic acquisition. So based on like your needs, you could always come and hop in between of those two. Engagement overview is your like basically what people are doing on your website, like more about like you could identify it with your behavior reports in the UA. So here the important one is your event name reports, where you could see your top events and how they are currently interacting on the site. What are the popular metrics over there? Then another is the conversions. So out of those events, some of them you would be calling them as conversions, which is like your goals. That report is also important. You could see here in these sections. And again, here you could always like share those reports, or if you want to see some quick insights rather than like going deep dive into it, you can quickly click on it and like it will show you some suggested questions. So for example, I want to see some demographics. What language do people use the most? And if you click on it, it will give you the answer based on this report. So that is quite cool feature. Like you don't need to deep dive like all the time. Some basic questions, you can always find it here, and like you can simply click on it and it will give you that answer there. Yeah, and then the monetization is you can identify it as your enhanced e-commerce reports. If you are an e-com business, you will find your product related information and total revenue and so on, like here, which you can identify. And then there is like a retentions and like a user reports, which is like basically about like your demographics, where you can identify your users based on their country or language. And like also like in the tech part, you could see them based on like their what type of devices they are using. So this is like kind of like a overview of like their reporting sections. Then there is like this explore part, which is also like as your custom reports you can build here. If you see some of the reports which you want to deep dive into. And they have like a different template gallery, which you can always use to start with, or you can create from the very beginning. So let's say like I will open one example over here, which we just recently had created these reports. So in the reporting section, when you come here, you can create like a reports based on your needs, interest. So let's say like we are creating like a report for the demographics. And here you could see in this section, there are like a different segments that you can add. And you can create like a multiple segments, or like you can add like a multiple dimensions. You can just like click here and you can select and click import on it. Same way like it is for the metrics. Then in the technique part, it is like how you want to see your table. It can be like a freeform code and like other different parts which you can explore. Also like a visualizations, like if you want to see like a table report or like in the geo map and so on. Once you added like your metrics in these sections, then you can start building up your report. So to give you one example here, let's say we want to see what are the top spending age group in our from our purchasers. So we created like one segment called purchasers, and then like we added like the age group. So if you are not sure if this segment should go in the age rows or columns, you can always just like simply click on it. Like for example, let's say I want to add like the age part, and either you can just like drop it or like select it, or if you are not sure, you can just simply double click on it and it will put it in the correct section, whether it should go in the row or it should go in the column. So once you added that, you could just like start building up your and like look at the reports. So in the explore section, for example, here we can see for it some specific date, and we can see like this is the segment which is like pretty straightforward. You can see like they are the top spenders. The best part of this explore report is that like you could deep dive into your reporting and like you could see some extra insights. So for example, let's say like we have like a purchasers, and we want to see some purchasers which have come to your site and they just like quickly completed the purchase without any time. So this is the new feature in the GA4 where you could build the path of your purchase, giving them like the sequence, and then like you could add like a time constraint, which was not available before. So you can say like there are like people, these are the people who just like came on your website and they converted within 10 minutes. And you could build an audience based on that as well. And let's say like we added like these two audiences to look at like how they were performing.
And Pronab, the key thing there is you weren't able to do this before in the old Google Analytics. If you wanted to know like someone who purchased within 10 minutes or someone who purchased within 5 minutes, so like who are those impulse buyers? It might be really good depending on the types of products you sell to create some sort of layering with your Google Ads with those audiences, or retarget to them, or create a similar audience. So it's pretty cool that you just wouldn't be able to see that before.
Yep, exactly. So like as you can see here, like we knew that like these are the two audiences which work best. But like when we add like our impulse buyer section, we can now see that like even though this 55-64, there are like 75 converters, but over 60% of them were like impulse buyers. So there is some opportunity. Maybe we are just ignoring that like segment, and there could be like opportunity to optimize that. So this is just like a one example to show you can like deep dive into your reporting. You can be very creative, and like you can explore several opportunities that you can use. So that's the option of that's the power exploring tool gives you. And yeah, so that's pretty it. And like then in the advertising sections, you would able to see like if you are using the Google Ads, like how your campaigns are performing. And yeah.
Awesome. Thanks, Pranab. So it's a really quick overview. I know there's so much to go through, but we only have so much time today. I guess like the one thing I'll also say is you can go to YouTube. You can look up Google Analytics for tutorials, Google Analytics for intro tutorials, beginner tutorials, and you'll see a lot. But now that you have a little bit of frame of reference, I think it'll make a lot more sense, because sometimes those tutorials, they just jump right into it, and it's kind of hard to follow along if you're not familiar with it. So I'm going to quickly share my screen again and just talk about this free resource. Thanks, Nabila. So Nabila just shared the free resource with everyone. And so it's this right here. I'll just walk through it very quickly for everyone. So we went through the 4 different phases of doing this migration. And so we had the pre-work phase, and there was audit and then structure. And then we had the setup phase. And so we've created this, this tool for everyone here so that you can kind of follow along for your own website and your own company. So that first, all of those questions that we were asking at the beginning, like what is your business structure? How many websites do you have? What platform are you running on? You can fill out your answers here. And I think a really big one, I left more space here, is which reports are you currently using? So if you know which reports you're currently using, and you can make a list of them, and you can always modify this however you like. I think that step alone will help you make this this migration so much more effectively, and not get confused and by all of the shiny new objects that are in GA4. So you got the stuff that you know and you rely on a regular basis, and you can layer on those other predictive insights and stuff. So that's the first step for audit. Next one is for structure. So this one, just so I don't scare everyone with all of these parameters here, remember how Pranab was talking about how events in Universal Analytics had 3 different parameters that you could tie to an event. So someone initiates checkout, and we can tie in 3 different values. It was category, action, label. But you would probably you'd be able to put in the parameters around like the page that it happened on, or the URL that they went to after, or something along those lines. So now you can use multiple different parameters. But that is like I'd say like the more advanced part of this. Really, if it's bare bones and really simple, is to look in your Universal Analytics right now, and you go to admin and goals, and then you look at which goals you're tracking. So to look at every website, Google has a maximum of 20. Universal Analytics has a maximum of 20 goals. So just look in what are we tracking as a goal. So is it form completion, or is it maybe a phone call click, or an email click, or something along those lines. So you'll have those goals here, and you'll also have a dollar value. You may or may not have a dollar value attributed to it. So the first step is just to kind of document what is going on right now. And then the same thing is maybe you're tracking some specific events like video views, and that's important to you, but maybe it doesn't have dollar value, maybe it does. The thing about Google Analytics that maybe it's a blessing and a curse is there's so much customization available. So it maybe makes a little bit, there's a steeper learning curve, but you can really make it work for whatever your website is. So that's the step 1. And then the step 2 is what will that look like in GA4? So, and the reason why we do this is that these events will be following one of those structures that we talked about. It's either going to be in those automatically kind of recorded events, the recommended events structure. And so we do have a list of them right here for reference. So automatically collected events, what does that look like? Enhanced measurement events, so extra things like scrolls, page views, file downloads. and then all of the recommended events here. So if you had begin checkout, for example, if you were right here and you had this one that said initiate checkout, I'm going to use the same example for now. Then here it would have to be called begin, and it'd be lowercase, begin checkout. So I'm just going to use that as an example. So there has to be this kind of translation that happens from the old to the new. And because there was no rules around simplifying and standardizing the data for the machine learning before, that's going to be a hodgepodge. It's going to be different on everyone's website, depending on how you named it internally with your team. So then once you know which conversions and events you want to be tracking, then you can add on all of those other parameters. So what's important with initiate checkout? Like the page that it happens on, maybe the product that is part of that checkout process. Maybe if there's a coupon used, right? So all of these other things that might be important will be part of those parameters. So that's the second part. And then we get into the setup checklist. And so this is basically a step-by-step of what Pronab talked about when he was talking about going into the actual platform itself and setting these things up. Every single one of these is Googleable, I will say. You can Google it. You could probably find a YouTube video on how to do it. But the part that maybe would be too advanced for most people is going to be this events setup using Google Tag Manager. So that's something that we specialize in at Ollo Metrics. And so it is something that we help with, and most Google Tag Manager is a fairly complicated tool if you're not comfortable using it. So, but as far as this initial setup, I think everyone here should be able to do that themselves, just by kind of going through some of these steps and looking up a YouTube video. It's just all of the advanced customization and setting up reporting that might be a little trickier. So, and then this is, as I mentioned, just a reference on the events. So this is a guide right here of like what type of event would you need to use when you're doing that translation from the old Universal Analytics to the new. And so if it's automatically tracked, you just keep using that. It's kind of cascading the way it goes down. If it's not automatically tracked, then maybe it's available in enhanced measurements like file download. And then if not, then you have to use these Google recommended events. And if you don't see, like the example earlier, like was a product review click, if you didn't see it in this list, then it has to be a custom event. And so you have to create a custom event for your site. So before, most events were custom. I think all events were custom. So now Google's just created way more standardization. So that's this tool. And I just want to quickly also give a shout out to the next workshop that we're doing. We're doing this one. We've done it before, and it was a really popular one where we go through funnel calculators. If you're ever wondering, like, how do I know what budget to pick for my Google ads or Facebook and Instagram ad campaigns, then I think this is a really good one. So we'll be sharing this resource link. Actually, Nabila, do you have a link to this? If not, we'll share it with the follow-up email.
We'll share it with a follow-up email.
We'll share it with a follow-up email. But basically the third Wednesday of February, Christina, who's one of our senior account managers, and I are going to go through this, and we'll go through a whole funnel calculator. And basically, so you want to know, like, how much can I pay per click, and how much should I budget for my digital marketing campaigns? So that being said, we'll get into our groups right now. And so I'm just going to stop sharing here for a sec. And I know that everyone's, a lot of cameras are off and stuff, but we'll just set up a few breakout rooms. If you guys do want to really, sorry, I'm going to share my camera screen one more time because I actually just want to walk you guys through this. But if you guys do want to get some hands-on experience, this is probably the best place where you're going to learn the most. We're going to do a little exercise called Find the Metric, and we have about 15 minutes. So we'll get one person to share their screen, take notes, and Pronab and I will move around the different rooms. So we just got to find three different metrics, and it's all on the slides right here. So I think this is like where you've got the information fresh in your mind. Now let's see if you can kind of go through and navigate with our help. And I think this is where you're going to learn the most and get comfortable with the platform. So I will quickly create some breakout rooms, and then so we'll need at least one person from each group to access the Google Analytics 4 property, and then we'll go from there. So actually what I'll do is I'll do 3 breakout rooms, and then Pranab and I will leave. So a lot of you will be able to at least observe what's going on, and then the rest, or one person will share their screen. Okay, I'm gonna open rooms. Okay, and we'll stop recording.